Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Getting Creative With, the show where AADL staff engage with an arbitrarily chosen topic to stay playful, stay inspired, and as the name suggests, creative. My name is Ksenia, and with me today are AADL staff members Aurora, Christopher, Stephanie, and Shoshana. And this week's theme was foil, a shiny covering, a literary technique. So many things could be said about this wondrous word / substance. So what do you have for us today?
Well, I was thinking doing a foil release. I was trying my hands on putting, instead of glue, I use hot glue at some places and use glue to do the design on the cardboard before I put the foil. And then after that, I put the black ink and then kind of rub it off and try to get some antique looking. But then I saw somewhere that you could put markers to make it more colorful in some places. So I did another one, a different one, because it kind of, the color didn't quite enhance what I want to do on this one. But this is my first one. So I play around with the second one. So I left the shiny part. I didn't use any black on the inside. It's too shiny, but I try to put more colors inside these little peoples and also put a texture with the markers for the background. And then I just playing with the water-based markers on the back so you could see a tin of it. And then I use the oil base, it give it more detail, just to give it pictures, trying to play with different things to do with the release to make it more interesting. And that's what I did with my foil.
Aurora, so is there something between the cardboard and the foil? You put a leaf in there or you put some construction paper?
No, I put glue and some portions if I don't want to wait to glue to dry, I use hot glue guns. Because they said you could use yarn, you could use glue, you could use hot glue gun to get the line. And then after that, you rub it so that you get the uneven surface that shows what you want to do.
I see.
And then you could paint the black over it to get an antique look. And then I thought, besides that, I want to try different things. So I just use water-based marker first, but then it really doesn't show through. There's a tint in it, but it doesn't show through. So you have to use oil base to get the color, or you can see the detail more with the oil base. But the water base didn't show through.
Okay.
But that's what I did.
That's great.
Beautiful. Did you find it difficult to get that level of precision with your hot glue gun? I mean, I know you're like the hot glue gun master, but I wonder like how difficult it is.
Yes, I could. I just didn't want to use glue because I was not patient to wait for 24 hours. I really want to play with it. So by using hot glue gun, I was able to get it on there. Except I know that hot glue gun doesn't give it wider surface. Like if you see the edge of this one is much wider. I have to hot glue gun 2 times, 2 rows, and then glue it to give a bigger surface. But I heard that if you want to use glue, the line surface will be more smoother than the hot glue guns. Because like you say, it couldn't control the smoothness of it, but using glue, you could, so.
Nice. Yeah. And I like the idea also that you mentioned having looked into this, like this technique that you can actually put string down as well. I think it's a really interesting way to do a release.
Yeah, some people use yarn, glue the yarn to give it the grip of it to do it. I didn't do it mine, like that. But I know some people, I have seen that's what they use too.
Mhm.
Did you have the foil shiny side up or matte side up? Shiny.
Shiny side up.
Did
That's
you?
why.
How was the paint sticking to it? Did it do it the way you wanted it to?
The watercolor one, it's kind of give it tint, so it's kind of different. But the oil-based one, I have no problem sticking to it. The one that I use. So.
Great.
So I just play around to see.
Neat.
Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah, it has an entirely different aesthetic than like, just any other sort of relief print or even like a drawing. Nice. All right. And I have to check my list. I always like don't know where I am in the order, so I think I'm next.
I think you're next, right?
Yeah, looks like it. Cool. I got this. I'm organized. Well, I was an English major when I was in college when I did my undergraduate degree. So when I think of foil, I can't help but think of the literary definition of foil. Like, the foil is the contrasting character to like, whoever is the main antagonist is. So I kept on thinking of contrast. So I sewed a dress because I wanted to make something that I could then go back and dye using the Shibori technique, which is a resist dye technique in Japanese art culture. And so I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm going to share my desktop and share. Can you guys see this? Oh, Instagram?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So this is how I started the dress. It's just white, plain linen. It's all ruffly and stuff. And so after the Shibori, I ended up with that particular pattern. It was really, really fun. I've never done it before. I've never actually done tie-dye before. And so this is obviously very different from that. But I was excited to do something that I could actually wear and make use of, because the technique itself I fell in love with years ago, but I never like really had an occasion to use it. But I'm getting into sewing more and more because of this particular group of people and all the creativity that I see in it and the challenge that they give me by way of their own skill and talent. And I was like, I'll just make a dress and then dye it. Why not? So this is really cool. And I have a little scrap of linen right here to show this is just how it started, how it's going is, that's the social media hashtag right now, right? Is how it started, how it's going. And it's actually something that I'm going to wear. So I'm very excited about it.
I was just going to ask, could you explain more about the Shibori technique?
Sure thing. So Shibori is different from the popular sort of tie-dyeing technique because Shibori depends a lot on folding to create the resist rather than knotting or tying. So I would have done better, I think, to have dyed the fabric first and then made the dress, but I was really excited about sewing the dress. So what you do is there are different folding techniques. I used an accordion type style of technique. I folded the dress lengthwise several times, and then I accordion style folded it into this mass, which I then pressed between two pieces of 4x4 little like blocks of wood. I then tied that little mass very tightly. It became a little bundle, and then I just dropped it into a dye bath for a few minutes. It wasn't natural dye, Christopher. I'm sorry. It was RIT dye. And so after about 15 minutes or so, I was able to take it out, and the areas that were very tightly, the areas in the folds they remained resistant to the dye as a result of them remaining relatively dry. So that's about it for the technique. So it was just, the folding was
cool.
Thank you.
Do you have to treat your material first before you start the dye?
Just according to the manufacturer's instructions, this was just bleached linen. So it was minimally processed, but as far as fabric goes, so I just rinsed it with warm water, and I didn't dry it. So it was important for it to go in, according to RIT, moist and wet into the dye bath. Yeah, not a whole lot of treatment.
It's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm now kind of wearing it around the house because it's, let me see, 15 degrees according to my phone. So I'm excited for the time when I get to, actually wear it outside, but I'm happy with the way it turned out, and look forward to doing more of this sort of dye. But yeah, that was my foil. So I'm sorry if it seems kind of sneaky what I did with the foil theme, but I wanted to.
How creative.
There you go. Cool. All right. Well then, Christopher, I think you're up. What do you have for us this week?
Well, I was excited when this topic came around because I had watched a video quite a while ago from a guy named the Terrain Tutor. And he used this foil technique to make terrain for gaming or decoration. And let me pick it up here. So I followed his technique, and you end up with a kind of rock face made out of plaster of Paris. And I painted one side. I was a little disappointed with my painting because I didn't use the right colors, but I was really happy with the texture of the rock face. Essentially what I did is I took heavy duty foil and I put it back on itself several times with glue in between each layer, and then made some large folds in it, and then just crumpled it all up. And I've got pictures for the technique. And then spread it out, made a rim, poured in the plaster of Paris, waited for it to dry, and it comes right out of the foil really easily. And then I just painted it up. And so I still need to experiment with the paints that I'm using, but I was really happy with the way the whole rock face technique worked out with the plaster of Paris. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of texture on it. Like, I feel like, and it's, not overthought. I think that if you were to take spray paint and just like from a hard edge, because there's so many different layers, it would definitely hit some cool edges on it.
Right. And I tried using dry brush and some other techniques, and I didn't do a very good job. Anyway, I should have brought all my paint selection up so I could choose wisely. I just chose from a few different colors, but yeah, it was really fun to do as well. So
Just a regular type of plaster that you mixed it and poured it on?
that's right. I went to the hardware store and I bought plaster of Paris, which comes in a powder. The nice thing is it's non-toxic, which is great because a lot of things we work with now for crafts can be toxic. And I just mixed it all up. I mixed 6 cups of plaster of Paris with 3 cups of water, and I dumped it into my mold, which was the foil itself with a little rim around, and then waited for it to dry. It was really easy and fun.
And the foil was strong enough so when you poured the plaster in, it didn't unfold.
Exactly. So that's why I layered 5 layers of heavy duty foil, because if you only use one thin layer, when you pour the plaster of Paris in, you're going to lose all of your texture because it's so heavy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have any issues with the foil, like tearing, or when you were pulling the plaster out at all? Was it kind of messy, or did it come out pretty easily?
Easily, just came right off the plaster of Paris.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, you said that the person you watched the technique, did he does anything huge one or just enough? Because the foils only come in certain size. So did he
Right.
ever does anything huge or?
He does big projects, but not with foil. The foil project that I did is the same size that he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very limited to the size of the foil.
Right. But I'm sure, you know, he's clever enough. I'm sure he could easily join several of these panels together. That's a little bit beyond me for now, but
So how would you use a terrain like that?
well, I might use it in photography with miniatures. I just did something for the library this morning using stop motion animation, and this would be perfect as a background for that kind of photography project.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that would be such a cool backdrop and an environment for claymation or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. Or a little person climbing up a rock face.
Mhm.
So
That's fantastic. It's so clever. I guess I don't really think much about like miniature scenes or miniature scenery or you know, like setting development, but that is brilliant. That like opens up a whole new world for any
there's
enthusiasts.
right, and there's so much available online from people who have more experience, and you can kind of leapfrog over their early failures and get right to the good stuff.
Oh goodness, yeah. Bless the people, the brave souls who put their work on the internet for us to learn from. Wow, cool. Thank you, Christopher. I'm so taken with that. I love it. Well, hey there, Shoshana. Hi, welcome. What do you have for us this week?
So I signed up to do this because you guys just look like you were having so much fun. And I was like, all right, I have foil in the house. And I also went to the, like, am I going with a metaphor or actual stuff? And I don't know, it's hard to be creative in these current times. And so I started just playing with some, and nothing was coming to me. And so my sister gets credit on this. I was like, I'm trying to make something out of foil. I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh, we used to stitch it together. She's like, bear in mind, I remember doing this when I was 5. I think she may have still been in Germany at the time. And they use, real candles on Christmas trees and things. So flammable ornaments are an avoidance. But so I was like, okay, hang on, how could I do something? Because everything to me was practical based. Like, I use foil to protect pie crusts and things. And so she actually suggested this. And so I layered it with wrapping paper and tissue paper and just like stapled in the middle. And because it was near Valentine's Day, sort of made it into a heart shape. And then with all the different layers, I sort of went through, and now you have all these different reflective surfaces and things. And the different wrapping paper kind of gave it some different colors and stuff. But so yeah, I ended up making a Valentine's Day tree ornament. But I think one thing I found curious about it is because it's so delicate, like I ended up using a butter knife to like separate the layers and things. And most of the stuff I was finding, it's like, do you want the foil crinkly or not? And I was very indecisive, but I was sort of worried about it tearing. But so anyway, that's how I came up with this.
So
Really cool.
Christopher,
Go ahead.
I don't even know.
Go ahead.
Stephanie, go for it.
Oh, I was just saying it's really cool. I really like the idea. So kudos to your sister's ingenuity there.
Yes.
So Shoshana, is it layers of hearts and then you unfolded them all and then you alternated with wrapping paper and foil?
Yeah, so what I did is I took like a maybe 10 by 10 square of foil and then maybe 2 or 3 sheets and then cut it in 4. So I had, that times 4. And I had, wrapping paper of the right size. And so I actually stapled the square together of interwoven foil, wrapping paper, tissue paper, that kind of stuff, just to give it some bulk. And then she had historically stitched it, which makes sense. And I feel like I have a memory of like stitching foil as a kid. But I just use a stapler because we have the technology. Yeah, and then I cut it out after I had it attached to itself, and then yeah, just folding it, and then fitting in the attachment between like two pieces of the thicker materials in there. So yeah, the actual, just like originally it was flat, and then it was just a lot of peeling the onion or the heart, as it may be. So.
That's such a clever way to do it. When I was making like a little 3D Valentine's Day card for the 14 days project that we had for the library, I'm terrible at cutting things very well. So I had to like go back and even though I cut everything in a layer, like all the hearts in a layer, to make a little like essentially that, except to lay on a piece of paper. I had to like cut them individually at one point because like the paper was so thick that I was using. But yeah, that's a much smarter way of doing it. Of what you did. That's really wonderful.
Yeah, the fact that it was super thin,
yeah,
A, made it easier to cut, but B, I had to make sure it was attached, because you're right, it would have gone skidding all over the place, and it would have been a shape. It wouldn't have been a heart. It would have been a shape, which could be fun.
We have organic geometric shapes. It's fine. And then one more quick question for you. For me, how did you attach the string?
Yeah, so the wrapping paper I use is a little bit thicker, and so I just took whatever was attached to that and like laid the ribbon in it, put some hot glue down it, and then fold it. So there's like two pieces stuck together on either side. But that was trickier than you might think, only because I was worried about like everything I did bending the foil, and foil rips, but because there are lots of layers, one or two ripped wasn't going to be the end of the world. But yeah, I think like I might actually make something like this again in the future, but make it more paper heavy and just put a couple foil just to give it a little bit of glint, just because it'll be easier to make.
Yeah, gotcha. That's really stunning. Love it.
Did you use scissor to cut it, just regular, or kitchen scissor to cut it? Just because sometimes, like you said, it's because they're so fragile, you kind of, cut it.
And like scissors that have a little bit of a serrate on them, like can do you in or be great. I think it'd be fun to play with that. I was very much going with the like, what do I have in the house, and so fortunately the scissors I had worked. I thought about like, do I need to like box cut it out or something, or use an X-Acto, and no, it's just good non-serrated scissors that were sharp enough. Although that's sort of the joke, is that like not leaving the house much and you still can't find the scissors. Like there was a good 15-minute search just to find them.
Nice.
I feel that, yeah. I feel like I keep buying scissors and then they just disappear into a void somewhere.
Yeah, there's definitely like a house elf with all the scissors and shiny things.
Yes.
It's not a house elf, it's my daughter.
There you go.
And usually when you don't need it, that's when they show up too.
Yeah.
That's how mine's are.
Yeah.
It's been however many months now since quarantine started and since we started doing this whole thing, and I have yet to get a hot glue gun. Everyone always uses a hot glue gun in these things, and I'm still so behind.
Well, so that's what was a little funny, is that I have a hot glue gun, and I'm super conscious of when it's plugged in and when it's hot and that sort of thing. And I had it and I didn't want it to melt anything around. I'm like, I can put it on a piece of foil and the glue won't stick to anything and burn things. So the practicalities of foil helped out.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that. That makes me so happy. I didn't think I would see an ornament this week because it's February. Love it. Great. Stephanie, hi. I am totally disorganized and I realized I just went out of order with all the list. So sorry about that. Hi, what have you got for us this week?
I have no idea how well this is going to show up. I also did a relief, but it's not super mounted. Yeah, I don't think it's going to show up at all.
Picture. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I took, I bought some flowers and this lovely bouquet of leaves. I don't really know what type they were. And I tried just pressing them into the foil to see what would happen. And it was a lot of fun. It doesn't super show up though. It's not very visible. But I did a few practice ones, and it just looks like crinkles from here. But this was baby's breath. And then I tried milkweed because there was still some milkweed pods out in our yard. But only the little like bumpy seed parts of them showed up. The fluffy milkweed things won't show up in the relief. So yeah. So
it's kind of like it reminds me of like the home movie animation version of Han Solo, like trapped, because like the textures are there, but it's still a block. That's kind of neat.
Mhm.
yeah, so it didn't really end up with like a finished product, really. Like it's not something that I would hang up or use in any way, but it was super fun to do.
Did you find it? Did you find that the foil retained its integrity as you were doing the relief print, or did any of it rip at all? Was there a moment of bated breath where you were like, "Oh my God, did I rip that?"
I didn't have it rip at all, but I just used like this really old Reynolds wrap I have sitting around, and it's maybe a little bit like bent on the corners, and when I was unspooling it, it would wrinkle. So that was a little bit frustrating because like, on the tops here, it's like wrinkled, and I'm like, well, I really wanted a nice flat sheet so I could get a nice relief, but oh well.
Stephanie, I would think that foil would work perfectly with leaves. Did it not show up as crisp as you had imagined?
Yeah, I mean, it shows up okay. Like, I don't know if you can see, and it's not showing up on a camera like at all. But yeah, it showed up pretty well. I think that if I had maybe like a thicker leaf, it would have shown up better. And then I also tried, I have like some baby's breath.
Yep.
But I tried, but of course, like the little tiny white pieces just showed up as circles. So you don't
Okay.
definition on something like that.
Well, it's still really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. And how did you do the rubbing? Like, did you use a card of any sort, or just use your hands, or how did that go about?
I ended up just using my fingers. I tried to use like my phone to press down on it, and different like household things like that. And I was finding that it was just putting too much pressure in the wrong spots.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually causing it didn't quite tear, but I was like, this isn't really getting where I need it to be. So when I used fingers to rub on the tin foil, I was able to get into the creases of the leaves and definition there.
Nice. Oh, cool. And did you use the dull side or the shiny side? And how did you choose?
I put the leaves on the dull side, and I was rubbing on the shiny side.
Mhm.
But then I liked how it looked on the dull side better, so
Gotcha.
against the leaf.
Nice. I chew a lot of gums. Like I always have like this like gum foil over the place. And like even earlier today, like I had my gloves over here, and I was just like doing a relief print of like the little dots on my weightlifting gloves. So yeah, it's really satisfying. I like having it show up.
Yeah, it's something that I was like, oh, this is something I could do with my nieces or something. And we'll have them pick leaves out and try this.
Yeah, it's really accessible, and I appreciate that so much. All right, well, cool, you guys. thank you for bringing your foil and your foil ideas and I don't know, something about a foil pun. I think I made one earlier in an email, Shoshana, so I'm just gonna not do that right now. Curses foiled again. There, I did it. Anyway, thank you for always inspiring me, for giving me so many things to think about in the way that I stay creative and yeah, go about my day making things. Thanks for that as usual. So I will see y'all later. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.